Hello and welcome to the only podcast where Mark Hamill is our favorite actor for two different reasons. I'm Matt,
I'm Luke.
And I'm Max.
and this is for Thoughts presents More for Thought. Hello and welcome back, everybody. Sorry, I got kind of loud there.
Yeah, so I never know how to do this because obviously listener already clicked on the title to this,
Yes.
so they know a little bit more than I do right now. But go ahead and catch
Assure
me
them
up
that
to
it's not a
speed.
typo.
Yes, so every once in a while now, we decided to do, we have a lot of other interests. We're diverse and interesting people. I mean, Star Wars does solidify it. I was doing a lot of different thought, like thinking about this. And so we have a lot of other interests. And so we want to do these episodes called More for Thought, where it is beyond just the Star Wars canon as we know it and that we love. And so the first thing that I wanted to talk about today, for the first More for Thought, was Batman the Animated Series, because it is my first love. It was what started me into nerdom. And I was thinking about this, just relating it to Star Wars off the top just for a minute. And I was thinking about it.
I'm going to try to be relating it to Star Wars the whole time. Damn it. Just so you know.
Luke is not an interesting person. Star Wars is all he knows.
No, I was going off of that. I was thinking about, Batman. I loved it. That was one of my first memories is Batman the Animated Series. It's the Joker in Arkham Asylum. I was watching it with my grandparents on the WB Kids back in the late 90s.
Arkham Asylum, the video game?
What? No, Arkham Asylum, the place. That's where he's at, in the
Okay.
location.
Okay.
And so, I was thinking about Batman in general and how...
I mean, Gotham City is where he is.
What? In this episode, one of my first memories is watching the
You're
Joker.
talking about a specific episode.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe it's one of the episodes that he texted us about.
Maybe. It's
I
actually
watched
not.
him.
Good. Did you watch? Well, we'll
Not
get,
recently, clearly.
Well, the trial was in Arkham, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
we'll get to this. But then, I was thinking about Batman and Batman the Animated Series and how I love the Animated Series. It's my favorite show of all time. It's one of my favorite things of all time. But unlike Star Wars, there's so much to consume that I'm not a huge fan of all of it. I love the Nolan films. The Dark Knight is my second favorite movie of all time. I love the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher Batmans as well, just because they're fun, they're dark, and then they get very campy. And I was like the Matt Reeves one is too, but I don't love all of Batman. Which is odd. And then I was thinking about the other things I love, right? And it's like I love Harry Potter, but I don't love Fantastic Beasts. And so it's all these things, and Star Wars is like the only thing that is really consistent throughout all of it. It's like I love the animated shows. I love the original trilogy. I love the sequel trilogy and the prequel trilogy. So it's a huge thing for Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say that I love one more than the other, but as a whole, it's like, well, I guess it is Star Wars.
I know, and it makes it so it's nice to have that perspective sometimes when I'm talking to someone else and they're like, oh yeah, I love Star Wars, but not like the sequels. And my first gut reaction is like, screw you, you don't like Star Wars, I don't want to have the rest of this conversation. But
Yeah.
for most people, that is a reasonable feeling to have.
Yes.
Yeah, and like Matt said, it happens in a lot of different fandoms because as you're
Exactly.
saying that, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's like me and Lord of the Rings. I love the Lord of the Rings. I don't like the Hobbit movies, and I also did not like the Rings of Power. So I'm like, it's really just those three movies. And at this
Yes.
point, that's like the minority of the Lord of the Rings
Of the
basically.
content there, which is so weird.
I was thinking also, my first love was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I loved watching the cartoon growing up, and I had a bunch of toys. And then years and years later, I started reading the comic books for the first time, and they all have the same color. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm not going to read this.
That was when they started coloring them too, because it was originally in black and white.
I know, black and white was dumb, and then they added color, but not different colors. I was like, what the hell?
You literally cannot differentiate them unless they use their names.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. When they're weapons, presumably, right?
Yes, and their weapons
Yeah.
were still
Okay.
different. Yeah.
But still, very hard.
I mean, they have face shots and stuff. It's a comic. Yeah.
Just do it right the first time.
I wonder what Luke's more for thought's going to be about.
The operational efficiency of Chick-fil-A. I can't wait.
That's
You brought
true.
it up multiple
It's
times.
been-
It's
So
just going to be me reading my research paper.
But so Batman the Animated Series for me is the best cartoon and one of the best shows of all time. It takes an adult animation approach to a kids TV show, and is able to make something that's dark and gritty and make it palatable and also entertaining and wacky. And I think it does a great job of introducing new characters, like Harley Quinn, like the Grey Ghost, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as legacy characters that we all know and love. And then not only just take their spin on them, but I think make the best versions of each villain in every single way. And so that's my relationship with it was I started watching it I think when I was 3 years old on the WB Kids on Saturday mornings. I literally one of my first memories again when I was like 3 or 4 years old watching that. And I grew up loving it ever since, and just rewatching all those reruns. And obviously, it also ran from 1992 to 95, but we can get to that in a little bit because I want to see what your guys' relationship was with that show. If you watched it when you were kids, if you watched it when you met me and knew that I loved it so much, or what is your relationship with it?
I've seen it. I watched 2 episodes to prepare for this episode in the last week or two. A couple years ago, I know you've liked it for as long as I've known you, and I asked you years and years ago for a recommendation, and so I watched one episode then. I think I watched a few, and I never really got hooked on it. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of gave me old vibes. The animation is dated at this point, and so I haven't watched all of it, and I probably won't. But I did like what I've seen. I like Batman, and I like cartoons, so I had nothing wrong with it.
Maxwell?
So, if you listen to the podcast, you know I commonly refer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe because I really like Marvel, but I do also really like Batman and all of its different iterations. The animated series probably isn't my favorite because I don't have like that childhood memory associated with it. I started getting really into it in college when I started hanging out with you, and that was like your favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. Okay.
So
don't say it so negatively.
Star Wars was in a lull.
No,
those times.
those were the dark times.
That was pre-2015.
Yeah, 2012 to 2015. No, I didn't mean that to sound like it was a bad thing because I have a very positive relationship with it because now, if for whatever reason I'm like home alone or something like that, like on a Saturday morning, I throw on Batman the Animated Series, and that's not something that I used to do as a kid, but I feel like I am a kid again, even though I didn't do that.
Yes. Oh man, I'm so glad. I love the style. It's obviously very 1950s Art Deco, and there's something spooky about it and otherworldly about it. Like all the characters, especially in the 90s. Like how uncool was the 50s? I feel like now we can look back at it, but I feel like in the 90s, everyone's like, I'm going to listen to Marilyn Manson, and I feel like, and wear Junko jeans or whatever. But that's my perception of the 90s, even though it was probably more early 2000s. But I feel like the 1950s and that style is such a big swing to go with, because even the people who created it, which we can get into, Bruce W. Timm and Radowski, weren't alive presumably in the 50s. Like it's like their parents' era almost of that. So I'm a little confused why it was set there, but I think it works so well. And obviously this is coming off the heels of 89, Tim Burton Batman in that style and that grittiness. Because before that it was very campy in 60s Adam West obviously, but some background on the show is that it was created by, like I said, Bruce W. Timm and Eric Radomski. It went from 1992 to 1995, and it also had a comic book series that ran with it, which is the Omnibus that I was talking about a couple episodes ago, or maybe it was a couple months. I have no perception of time is what I'm realizing, ever. If anybody ever asks me, like, oh, it was a couple of weeks ago. I just said this to you earlier, Luke, when we were upstairs. I was like, oh, like last week when Lynn did this. And I was like, oh, that was actually like 6 months ago. Like, no perception of time.
That's true for real life, and then it's even exaggerated for the podcast when we try to record stuff ahead of time, and we're commonly like, oh, you know that from last week's episode. Actually, that comes out in a month from now.
Yeah, yes, so we apologize. And then so it ran from 92 to 95. And then 97, they rebooted the show with a new animation style to match the Superman the Animated Series, which then led to the Justice League show. And you guys, it's confusing on Amazon. This is something I've been dealing with my entire life, besides having the DVDs. The episode's organization, which we texted about a little bit, is different on Amazon Prime to HBO. Have you guys watched the different style? Have you guys noticed that different style if you're going through as well?
I haven't noticed it except for that one time when there was a glitch where you would watch Batman the Animated Series. I think it was on Prime, and the intro was the Superman show. Do you remember that?
Yes, which
was weird.
That's the thing, is somebody had to export that. Like somebody had to physically export that.
How do you
like,
accidentally do that? I don't understand.
So here's here's the picture of the Joker, for example. This is the 92 to 95 Joker, the classic Mark Hamill. It's still voiced by Mark Hamill, but then it goes into this style. So all the villains are different.
I can't see.
Sorry, Luke. And so all the villains are different, but also all the heroes are different too. And so we have a time jump. When it randomly in 97, when they reboot it, things are different. Dick Grayson, who is Robin in the 92 to 95 version, where it looks like the 50s, is Robin. I said that, I think. And then randomly, when it gets rebooted, it's a different time, and Dick Grayson now is Nightwing. And then you get, oh my God, I can't think of his name.
Jason Todd?
Is it Jason? I don't think it is Jason Todd. Oh my god,
He's the second Robin. Tim Drake is the third.
oh my god, I can't think of what it is. I think it is Jason Todd. It is Jason Todd. It is. Thank you. Cut this. And then Jason.
You don't want to get out Batman by me, who
I
didn't even
know.
watch
No.
the show.
Hey, I don't care. I do care. No, I believe it is Jason Todd. Man, it's gonna bug me that I didn't think of that. I'll write that down. But he is Robin now, and he's a much younger version. And then Barbara Gordon is obviously still Batgirl the entire time. And so in the '97, it just, to me, I don't count that as that same show. To me, I don't rewatch those episodes in the same way. It's the same voice actors, it's the same everything. Besides, the animation is vastly different, and to me, it looks sleeker and rubbery, more like rubber. I feel like the action figures were great growing up. I love those, but I just do not enjoy that animation style. It just takes me out of it completely. Did you guys ever watch Superman the animated series and or the Justice League show?
I think I might have seen a bit of the Justice League show.
I'm sure you did.
If anything, 1.5-minute intervals on TikTok.
Yes, that makes sense. Maxwell, have you?
I have not. No, since we're doing video right now, the person, watcher, I usually say listener, but now you're a watcher at home, can probably see that I'm a pretty big comic book fan. I got a lot of comic books behind me, but most of them are Marvel. So other than Batman the Animated Series, most of my animated superheroes were mostly Spider-Man and the X-Men series.
Which also, X-Men 97. Yes, I am ecstatic for those. X-Men the Animated Series, I'd say, is number 2 in the animated 90s cartoon shows that are based off of superheroes. It's so good. Lynn and I just have been rewatching it. Sorry, Luke.
I really like Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. If you guys have seen that,
I have not. That sounds like 20.
it's probably
10-ish?
2010s. Yeah. The show is pretty good, but the theme song really elevates it. Listener knows what I'm talking about. Watcher.
It's
Watcher.
confusing now, isn't it?
It is.
I still feel like most of our, I mean, at the time of recording this, recording works for audio and video. That's still
It
the
does.
same word.
That
At the
is.
time of recording this, we have not yet released any of our video with the podcast. So
That's
we have
true.
no idea like what the numbers are shaking out as. In my head, I'm imagining there's like 10% of the people are actually watching us on YouTube, and the rest are still listening in the car or at work. But
I think it's the opposite. In like
Really?
2 weeks, we're gonna have fur coats and gold chains. We're gonna be breaking into the money. Sorry,
Well,
Luke.
if you are still listening to us in the car, then rest assured you're really not missing that much. Other than my sweet collection of comic books behind me, we look exactly how you think we do. So.
Yeah. Check our socials out. I draw us quite a bit. And so just a bit more, I guess I have a little bit of background too, because I want to go, I guess, how we should structure this. I'm just gonna give a brief background. We watch some episodes, I want to talk about it, and just kind of talk about those episodes and see if we like them or whatnot. So something very unique about this show is that they also created a score for each episode that is unique to that episode, which is for TV, very rare. For an animated show, extremely rare. Usually it's the same music kind of used over and over again within a TV show, like Bob's Burgers or The Simpsons. It's usually the same kind of themes. Obviously you have a song here or there, but there's an entirely new score besides the intro theme for that episode, which is bananas, I think. Something else that the cast members did was they recorded all of their lines in a same room, so they actually acted off of each other, which is for an animated show also very rare. The only show that I know that does that is Bob's Burgers, and that's currently running. Usually how things work, right? Like I just watched an interview with Mila Kunis about Family Guy, and they just record their lines at home whenever, and they never see each other. They never go into a studio and interact with each other. They just record their lines and then send them off, and someone edits them. And so I think for an animated show, you can really see and hear that. That's why Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill have such a good Batman and Joker dynamic, I think. That's iconic for a reason. And then I think when they did the Arkham games, they were like, we need to get everybody from the animated series back. And, it's the Arkham series is heavily influenced by it. And so I think, you get those actors for that, because why not? Mark Hamill was the second choice behind Tim Curry to be the Joker. Harley Quinn was created for the show by Paul Dini, who is...
You said Mark Hamill was the second choice?
Yeah, he was, again, conflicting things. And if Tim Curry was too scary as a voice, and so they wanted Mark Hamill, who has a bit of more of that childish giddiness in some of his lines.
A little more hammy.
Yes, and Mark Hammy. See ya, Hammy. And then I also don't
one of those jokes is dumb. I can't believe you did.
keep me going. I can pitch all day. And then the other thing I saw was Tim Curry got like bronchitis or something and was unable to record. I don't see that necessarily. So I don't really know which one's the truth. But it's all kind of lore now.
Stories like that drive me up a wall where, because Tim Curry was the It clown, right?
Yeah.
I always see like fan posts of stuff like that on Reddit, and I always hope that that's not how Hollywood actually works, but now I worry that it is more so than I thought, where it's like, oh, I think this person should be this role because they did almost the exact same role 2 years ago and it was good. And it's like, don't just say because they did it once, they'll do it again. Like, acting, the whole point is to act like something else and be convincing. Like, that just seems so mushy brain for the people making this show to be like, oh, Tim Curry was a clown once, make him a Joker.
I completely disagree because I
Really?
am a huge fan of The Rock and Kevin Hart and all of their movies, and I don't want them to ever change.
Yeah. Luckily for Max, I don't think they will. The show also has two spin-off movies, which is Mask of the Phantasm. Have you guys ever seen that? And Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, which are fun. If you guys ever have a free hour and a half randomly, throw them on. They're fantastic. They're a lot of fun. This is also the first show to draw on black paper versus white paper, which is why it gives it overall that gloomy feel and that grittiness, which I loved. Again, it also aired as Batman the Animated Series, but then transitioned into The Adventures of Batman and Robin in order to get a younger audience, since obviously I think the first 5 episodes, people were like, this is really dark. I don't want my kids watching this. And luckily for me, I was my grandparents, so they didn't really care, it seems like. And so The Adventures of Batman and Robin, again, the intro title changes and the intro sequence changes, and sometimes they, for some reason, is the Superman intro. And so it's very confusing. And that's another thing, is that nobody really knows, I don't think, when these episodes were released. Because sometimes, again, you're looking at 60-something episodes from 1992 to 1995. And so a lot of these episodes are doubled up in time. So it's like, oh, we're going to re-air the same episode 2 weeks in a row. Or we're going to skip a week and then air another episode. And so there's not really a release schedule like we know it with normal TV, because it's a kid's show on Saturday morning. And so when you're looking at the DVDs, they're vastly different from the Amazon Prime release, or they're vastly different from the HBO release. And so in my mind, Christmas with the Joker is the first episode of the series, but in everything else, it's way down in comparison. Anyway, do you guys have any comments or thoughts on that?
Sounds pretty McClunky to me.
Oh my God. Stop trying to wiggle Star Wars into
I
this.
was about to say, you're just trying to make a Star Wars.
You can cut that if you want. I mean, that is clunky, the way that they released it, and we don't even know the release date. I mean, it's not like this is biblical times where we're trying to discover what they did back then.
I know,
this is 30 years ago.
I agree, but
ask them; they're still alive.
It's
Stuff like that happens all the time, though. The same thing happened with Firefly. When that show came out, they botched the release order, and a lot of people said that had a big reason to do with it not doing well in the ratings.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems a little different from that, because we know what happened at least. This one, it's we don't know the release order. How do we not know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, no one seems to be able to figure it out, to be honest, and it's the worst. They're also rebooting this show slightly, called the Cape Crusader. This is going to be an Amazon Prime show, which I'm a little nervous about, to be honest. But Bruce W. Timm is coming back as well. And so Bruce W. Timm, which we'll talk about in a little bit in the Grey Ghost episode, because the villain is modeled after him. And so I'm excited to see where that goes, but I'm also, slightly nervous. My relationship with it was again, it's not a hot take to be I love the Joker, right? But I feel in 2008, when The Dark Knight came out, I never heard anybody talk about Batman, and all of a sudden, all the popular kids were talking about Batman, which was in my mind, my thing, along with Star Wars. And it's well, fuck off, And so it's the same thing with the animated series, is that it is insanely popular. Obviously now with the internet, we're yes, it is a really popular show. People love it. I'm glad more people are liking it. But at the same time, I'm a little worried that it's going to get overexposed. With that being said, give me all the action figures. I want them.
That's true. That's the only way we can get them.
Yep. Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but I really want to talk about The Grey Ghost, because you wanted us to watch it before talking about it, and I've just been dying to talk about it ever since. And I've been waiting for the pod, because that episode was so depressing. The entire episode was just about a washed-up actor who played a superhero, and now that's all people know him for, and he's going broke, and all these things. And the kicker is that he's voiced by Adam West, and I was if this isn't the most upsettingly meta narrative I've ever heard.
And so, yes, to go into this, so we watched the 2 episodes. Did you guys watch Shadow of the Bat, the optional 3rd/4th, part 1, part 2?
But I did not recently, though.
So for this sake, we watched Trial. We watched The Grey Ghost, and the optional 3rd/4th episode, because it's a part 2, and 1 and 2 was Shadow of the Bat. So yes, let's get into The Grey
Those are your
Ghost.
3 favorite episodes?
No, they're not my 3 favorite. Trial was my favorite episode.
Son of a bitch, why are you making us watch this then?
Because I wanted to do a bit more diversity. Because it's hard to be like, watch Trial, Joker's Favor, and like Almost Got Him, which all involve.
Only because
you
I'm
know,
sure you do know this off the top of your head. What are your 3 favorite episodes?
it is Trial,
Those
Joker's
three.
Favor, and Shadow of the Bat, which is
Okay.
hard because it's part 1, part 2. But I would say Shadow of the Bat part 2.
You can count this one. If it's a part 1, part 2.
Okay,
we'll
then
say
yeah,
it's
Shadow of the
done.
Bat.
It's crazy to me that you're dropping episode titles like that. But now that I know more of how no one knows what the actual release date is, like I was borderline annoyed when you texted us like watch Trial and The Grey Ghost, and I was like, okay, well now I got to Google this, what season and episode number this is, and it was like hard to find. So I guess that makes sense that you don't read them that way or think about them that way.
Yeah,
but
it's not like season 3 episode whatever
Right.
because it's different. Yeah, these episode titles are just like, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? You know, Two Face Part 1, 2, Robin's Reckoning. Like they're all so good. Almost Got Them. They're all so good. Man, it's anyway. Sorry, The Grey Ghost. What did you guys think? This isn't one of my favorite. It's maybe my top 10, and it's because it is so different and it is depressing. I love the fact that it takes place mostly at night. I love that there's a serial bomber. I love that Bruce W. Timm they modeled the villain, the toy owner, off of him. It looks exactly what he looks like with the big glasses and blonde hair. Like
didn't
that's
know
really
that.
cool. The show's creator. I love the fact that they bring in Adam West exactly as this, washed up guy who's like selling his stuff. Like it is so dark for a kids show. So I wanted to show you guys or have you guys watch The Grey Ghost up against Trial, which is just pure fun mostly. So The Grey Ghost. And Luke, what did you think? Because I think you fell asleep and said, do I have to watch the rest of this or something? So
yeah, I only watched the first 10 or 15 minutes or so because I did fall asleep. It was kind of depressing. I was into it, like I was interested. I did not know that the toy maker was the bad guy, but or
Spoiler
the
alert.
toy
Spoiler.
seller was the bad guy. But I guess that makes sense because he was the other character in that episode. So I should have put 2 and 2 together. And I also didn't know that the Grey Ghost was voiced by Adam West. That is really like is that openly aggressive against Adam West?
I thought it
That's
was.
not even poking fun at. That's just downright bullying.
I think it's I don't know. I think there's something about, I mean, obviously, I think besides that depressing fact, I think the fact that like Bruce Wayne had a icon that he looked up to growing up that
Yeah,
happened
that was
to be
real meta and fun. I
Yes,
like that
that's the
dynamic.
aspect that I really like about it. It is obviously really depressing and stuff too, but it also has a good lesson at the end, right? He doesn't stop being himself at the end, right? He still does good in the end, right? Like he is successful. He helps actually fight crimes, even though he was just doing this on TV for a long time. He actually ends up doing what he did with Batman, who he inspired, which I loved. I love that dynamic. I love the toy shop. Like there is something about the animated series where like when I was a kid, I was like, life is never gonna be that cool in a way. We're just like it's just so weird, but it doesn't even say, but like everything looks daunting and crazy looking and like 1950, but there also seems to be like no real stakes because like people in this universe don't really die, right? It's always like, oh, like they get hurt and then they reappear or something. It's like obviously this is the first episode where it's like, oh, they're really down on their luck and it is depressing. But
So, to be clear,
Mhm.
you as a kid looked at this outcast toy shop owner who was down on his luck, clearly having financial troubles, resorted to terrorism and
Yes.
committing bombings
not this
to get-
episode.
to try to make money, and you said life will never get that good for me.
not as a character or not like in this universe, like just having those weird toy shops and stuff I think are so fun, which only Gotham I feel like can really have. Like the same thing with Merry Little Batman, the Amazon movie that came out, which is great. I think I've talked a little bit about that before. It's like only in the Batman universe can something look so depressing and dark and yet idyllic. Like there's something to it that I don't know the perfect mixture. And I feel like if you were to take my personality a little bit, I think it's like really goofy with really sad and all the other way around, which is why I'm wearing like the Sad Dads National. Like I feel like there is something about it. Like I love that the juxtaposition of like the Joker in his bright purple suit and like white face up against this really gloomy darkness of Gotham City. And I feel like there's something to that. I don't know. But how about Trial? The opposite of the Gray Ghost, maybe. Trial, I guess it's not as maybe not the opposite because it has to do with lawyers. But like I think the fact that lawyer strong. But I think the fact that like this is just like the best villain palooza. It has all my favorite villains in it besides Mr. Freeze. We don't get a speaking role from Riddler, but Riddler is in.
Is Penguin in it?
Penguin's not, but he's also not one of my favorites. Sorry, Penguin.
Shade to Penguin.
It's my top villains, especially in the animated series.
Luckily, you're
are-
a huge Danny DeVito fan, so it
That's
didn't
true.
bother you. And
Well, I love
Batman
twins.
Returns?
Batman Returns, yeah. The Joker's number 1, obviously. Number 2 is the Riddler. Number 3 is Two-Face. Number 4 is Scarecrow. Number 5 is Mad Hatter, who are all in this episode. Again, a little disappointed that Scarecrow doesn't get a line. He gets a creepy shot, and the Riddler is in the jury.
Can you do that in reverse chronological order so I can edit this later as a TikTok? Hey, Matt, what are your 5 favorite Batman villains?
Specifically from the animated series, my top 5 Batman the Animated Series villains are number 5, the Mad Hatter. Number 4, Scarecrow. Number 3, Two-Face. Number 2, the Riddler. And number 1, the Joker.
All right, thank you. And for our watchers at home, I do apologize that I'm not going to edit that better later on to leave that part
No,
out. So
yeah. We can't do
you
that.
just heard that twice.
Also, Max has been editing episodes. I feel like we should say that because I feel like
We got stolen valor over
yeah,
here.
Stolen valor.
I feel like canonically it's weird that like I put up with such a fuss that I edit the episodes, and now Max has been editing the episodes, and so people are like,
It's just
wait,
the ongoing joke. In a little bit,
was I
Luke's going to
crazy?
be editing it, and we're going to be giving him shit. He's going to be like, no.
Over my dead body. That
not
sounds
learning.
awful.
I'm not learning anything. But so what do you guys think of Trial? Because I could go on.
I
about
liked it. I knew next to nothing about Mad Hatter because he's not in any of the movies or really any of the video games that I've played either.
He's in Arkham
Um,
City, but
Is
yeah,
he?
yeah,
I did play that one, but
he's the
I
side
didn't know
quest.
anything about him really. And he was pretty cool. The episode I liked the girl reporter, DA, lawyer.
The lawyer, yeah.
Yeah.
She's
she
only
was-
in this episode.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Um,
Does not
that's a
recur.
very, tried and true Batman story where he's galvanizing the villains such that they keep. What's that Jim Gordon quote from the end of Batman Begins when he's like, "We buy Kevlar vests, they get armor-piercing rounds,
Yeah,
and now
yeah.
you're jumping around in a mask off of buildings." That story beat is very
Yep.
done in Batman. And even though this was probably before a lot of those other ones, definitely before Batman Begins, I'd seen Batman Begins already, so that didn't really resonate with me this time.
Damn it.
But it was good. I liked it. It was fun seeing all the villains. Harley Quinn, I don't know what I was expecting because it seems exactly in line with everything I've seen from Harley Quinn. But
Mhm.
just because this is the first Harley Quinn incarnation, I was surprised just how Joker's girlfriend she was. Not very
Yeah.
independent, which, I mean, obviously she's always been very tied to that character.
There
but-
are other episodes and story arcs though where she does go off.
Oh, really?
Yep, Harley's Holiday, Harley Quinn very good. Harley and Poison Ivy, all good episodes where she kind of breaks off and free.
That's good. That's good.
I do love that joke though when I forget exactly what they say, but they're like she's clearly whatevering the judge and they're clearly flirting. It's a very funny beat.
I remember that beat too, and I can't quote it
I
either,
also
but I agree.
love that the Joker uses instead of a gavel rubber chicken.
Mhm.
Chicken.
It's things like that are so funny.
Yeah.
And I also love that his entrance, I think it's so smart.
He was wearing the colonial wig or whatever
Yep.
that's called. That was
Yep.
fun.
And I think a big great twist in it is that he wins. They agree that that Batman's correct and they're wrong. That they should, they blame their lives on them. But since they're so demented and twisted anyway, they're gonna kill him anyway. And I love that beat. It's just something that you're like clearly they're gonna lose, but no, they win. But they're just like, but since we're villains, we're gonna kill you. Max, what did you think of it too?
It makes them even more maniacal because you're like, oh, they do see reason, but they just don't care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's probably one of my favorite ones, but I think I'm pretty heavily influenced by you because, like I said, I really started watching it in college when we started hanging out. So I think it was probably one of the first ones that I've seen. It's probably one of the ones that I've seen the most. As a lawyer, I hold it in a certain place in my heart, I guess, as well. But yeah, I liked it a lot better than the Grey Ghost episode. I don't want to just be like a ball brain and say like, oh, well, it has the Joker in it. and I
No,
like
but
Joker. But
Yeah.
I
agree.
like the Joker.
No,
I mean,
agree.
he's my favorite Batman villain, and Grey Ghost. It was I guess I'm learning this now, but you said he's an original character to the animated
Yeah.
show, so I didn't know that. Same with the bomber character, the toy shop owner or whatever. So I liked the story, but I was a little bit depressed by all the Adam West
the other stuff.
conversation. So yeah, I like this one a lot better personally.
Yes, this was. I also love when it's like it's the dark scene. How the lights go off, and Two-Face is shooting the gun, or Joker's shooting the gun eventually, and he's like, "You'll kill a croc," and he doesn't care. And he shoots anyway. I love that stuff. And then Joker is dressed up as a priest and doing a little Irish accent. It's so good. I don't know if you guys remember this, like I do, I guess necessarily, because I saw your eyes going back and forth for
I
a
do
second.
not. Yeah, as you're saying this, I'm like, oh, I do not remember that.
I don't
My-
remember the priest bit either. You sure that's this episode?
Yeah, I'm
That's-
1,000% sure it's this episode. My favorite.
It's like I've never been more sure of anything. In my
Yes,
life.
like the Empire Strikes Back was made in 1980. And then one of our friends growing up was kind of dumb-brained, and so we always call him Killer Croc. If he was the villain, he'd be Killer Croc. And one of my favorite things is,
I'm familiar with it. That's called bullying.
yes, it is.
You
Which
were
is-
a childhood bully to this boy.
If it helps, he was our neighbor, and he is not dumb. He was just like we.
He was a little ball brained. His brain was not wrinkly. It was a smooth ball.
Yeah, he was.
The
a
watcher can
smooth
make
brain.
up their own opinion about whether or not that is bullying.
But we were always like, oh, that's like, I guess I'm teeing this up weird, but one of my favorite parts of the joke, which is why we quote it so much, we're like, oh, if you were a villain, you'd be this character. And then they're like, how should we kill him or whatever? And they're like, hang him, beat him. And then there's a pause, and then Killer Croc's like, hit him with a rock. It's so stupid. It's like, what? It's one of my favorite beats, though.
Which villain were you when you and your neighbors were deciding who was who?
The Joker, baby, because I'm funny.
Okay, all right, that checks out.
And I got a big nose. Not the same kind, though, but it's not as pointy. It's very round, very clown nose-esque.
I'm trying to think who I'd be now. Probably Penguin.
No, you'd be a good penguin. Not in a bad way.
You have a good nose for penguin
I was
too.
thinking it's only a bad way.
Max, who would you be?
I don't know.
You love puzzles.
I do like puzzles, so probably the Riddler, I suppose. But the problem is, as soon as I stop thinking about this, I'm going to realize somebody else that I want to be instead. But I'll say the Riddler.
All right. Yeah, I love the Riddler, especially in the animated series. He's great. But I also love in Trial specifically.
No, I want to be Ra's al Ghul because he was played by Liam Neeson in the Nolan trilogy, and he was Qui-Gon, who's one of my favorite Jedi.
That
Star
is
Wars.
Another big thing, though, in the animated series, it's Ra's al Ghul, but in Batman Begins, it's Raish.
Oh, is it Ra's in Batman the Animated Series?
Yeah.
Because it was also Ra's in the Arrow universe,
Mm.
and I thought that was weird as I was watching it. But that seems vastly different. Why
It
can't
does.
they nail that?
Ra's and Raish. Just the same reason they don't know when episodes came out.
This
Um,
reminds me of a story that is only tangentially related, but I was doing it was superhero trivia, and there were 20 questions, and the winner had 19, and I had 18 because I missed one of the questions, which was what is Catwoman's real name,
Selena Kyle?
and I said Sabrina Kyle.
Oh.
And I have never been more upset at myself about anything because I didn't even think about it. I just
Yeah.
wrote it down. I was like, "Oh, that's Sabrina Kyle," and then he was going over the
That's her
answers.
sister.
And I didn't make a big deal about it. I marked myself as wrong. I didn't fight it, but as soon as he said it, I was like, "I knew that. I know it's Selena Kyle.
I imagine you
Why
s-
did I write Sabrina Kyle?"
I imagine you saying this right now, but it cuts to that comic shop wherever you're doing that trivia, and you're like, fuck! Mother, like, you're in the bathroom.
Making the biggest scene
At
ever.
the table.
Everyone hears you in the bathroom. Like, that guy's really upset. I also love how Trial ends, where it just becomes a Joker episode where he just swinging from the ropes and stuff at the end.
Yeah, Joker was
Aside.
gradually in more and more
Yep.
of it, and I enjoyed that.
But I like how they slowly get whittled down little by little, and I like when Batman is, obviously he's dating or going on a date with the DA, and then they obviously like each other, but then she hates Batman, which is a funny dynamic. And yeah, I like the fact that also Batman can realistically get out of this straitjacket anytime he wants, but waits till the trial's done and he's able to be away from all the other villains. And Mad Hatter is Mad Hattering and is able to get all the white coats on his side. I love this episode. It's one of my favorites. And then Shadow of the Bat, which you guys didn't watch, is an episode where where Batgirl is introduced and she is up against Two-Face. Sorry, taking water.
That's okay. We'll cut that.
Anyway, that's kind of my more forethought for Batman the Animated Series. I absolutely loved it. We watched these 2 episodes that we really dig. So, do you guys have anything else to say to round out Batman the Animated Series? Again, this is the first more forethought. I'm sure we're gonna figure out some tweaks to do further, and it's a bit of a gamble kind of talking about your favorite thing during a test episode, but I could not think of a better thing to talk about to start me off my nerdum. And that really, a year later, realistically, I think I watched Star Wars. And so it really does go hand in hand.
I disagree that it's a gamble talking about your favorite thing, because that's what I think is a large appeal of our podcast in general, is just hearing people talk about what they're passionate about. I am not very interested or I don't want to say I'm not fond of it, but I don't watch Batman the Animated Series, but I still like listening to you talk about something that you love. And so I enjoyed it, even though
That's nice.
I didn't know what you were talking about half the time. And it's nice. It's nice to hear someone talk about something they love. So, and that's why we want to keep doing more for that, because there are some things that we love besides Star Wars.
Mention Chick-fil-A.
I'm not going to mention Chick-fil-A. I wanted to make a joke about how the Rebel Moon episode so clearly should have been a More for Thought episode. We won't do that again. If we have something to talk about that is not Star Wars, it'll at least be More for Thought.
Matt and I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
We're a democracy. Majority rules here. Yeah, I agree. And I really like talking about Batman because I really like Batman. He is my favorite DC superhero. And I didn't want to get you off track from the animated series, but I have been dying to ask you now to also rank your favorite Batman live action actors.
That's so tough. Man, put me on the spot too. I need to see like a list in front of me so I can actually
I'm
rank
surprised
them.
you don't know this off the top of your head. That's why
Man,
I asked.
I don't, because it's an interesting thing where not accounting movies and stuff either. And I think we're going to see a lot with Robert Pattinson as Batman developing, because he is by far the worst Bruce Wayne. Done on purpose, though.
Yeah.
He's like moody. He's a teenager. He's not a teenager, but he's got like long hair. He's super moody. But I think it's going to slowly go over time, see him, kind of rank up a little bit. I think the best Batman overall, I love Michael Keaton as Batman. I love Christian Bale as Batman. I think Christian Bale does the best job of doing both. So I would go Keaton, Christian Bale, Robert Pattinson, and then let's go. Man, this is really tough, but I'd go Val Kilmer or George Clooney.
Are you just forgetting about Ben Affleck? Or are you putting
you
him at the
must have
Oh,
forgotten Ben
jeez,
Affleck.
I did
Okay.
forget
That's
Ben
what I'm like
Affleck.
holding my tongue for, because I really like Ben Affleck as Batman. And the
Yes,
more you went,
I
was
agree.
like, Clooney?
I agree. I don't like him so much as Bruce Wayne though. But okay, I would put Ben Affleck behind Robert Pattinson, but above Val Kilmer, because I just have a soft spot for Val
Still
Kilmer.
so low for me. I really
know.
like Ben Affleck as Batman. I did not like the movies a whole lot,
Same.
but I
It's
really
hard
liked Ben
not
Affleck.
to think about the movies though, too.
I know, you gotta
have
tie
to
him
kind
a
of
little
hard.
distance
It's
yourself
really
a little
hard.
bit. Because this is a conversation that I was just having with Matt recently. I rewatched Batman before I watched The Flash.
Mhm.
And I was going on a flight, so I was like, oh, I'll just download both these and I'll watch them back to back. And I did. And as I watched Batman, I was like, man, Keaton is not nearly as charismatic of a Batman as I
No.
thought he was, like, in my brain. Like, when people talk about him, like, you just put him at the top of your list.
Yep.
And I was like, he was only okay. And then in The
He's
Flash,
sassy.
I was like, oh, he's a little bit better in The Flash, I
Yeah.
thought. But I was like, he's not my favorite. I'd put him at, like, 3 or 4.
It's that tie, right? It's the same thing with James Bond. It's like, who was your
I
James
was
Bond?
just about to compare it to James Bond and
Yeah.
how Pierce Brosnan is not the best Bond, but he's like our generation's
Yes,
Bond.
Bond,
So
yeah.
to us, it's like, oh, it's Pierce Brosnan,
Yeah.
of course.
And it's the same thing as like, well, growing up in the 90s, it's like, well, the only thing we had was Kilmer, Clooney, and Keaton. And so it's like, well, out of those three, it's Keaton. And then, and then I think Bale does a really good job, but he is less. There's more nostalgia, I think, tied to Keaton. And I'm like, ooh, 89 Batman, love 89 Joker with, Jack Nicholson. And like, if I'd be so pumped if Christian Bale showed up in another movie as Batman. It wouldn't make much sense. I don't really want that. But like, if he did, I would be pumped. But to see Michael Keaton in The Flash was like, it really did it for me. But yeah, how would you do you guys have a ranking of those on the top of your head?
No, similarly, just because same with the James Bond thing, Christian Bale's the one I'm most familiar with, the
Yeah.
most I've seen. So he's number one, then Ben Affleck, then Robert Pattinson, then I guess Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney. Well, again, old. I
Yeah.
mean, Michael Keaton can't turn his neck. Like, that looks dumb as hell.
None of them could until Christian Bale, though. So
That makes it look so dumb.
Christian Bale couldn't even Batman Begins. It was
I
only The Dark
know.
Knight. It's crazy. I know that's like another fact that we all know, but I just figured I'd say it.
Yeah, I mean, that is interesting. Like, it was 2005, and they didn't think for the first Christian Bale Batman movie to have him turn his head. That's such an easy decision.
Interesting. Yeah, I pretty much agree with Luke's ranking.
Hey.
I'm like trying to like be like contrarian and be like, oh, I disagree with it, but I'm like, that's pretty much how I am.
The Taylor blood. Anyway, anything else on Batman?
Nope.
Go watch it in the animated series. It's on HBO. It's on Amazon. It's great. It's my favorite show of all time. But yet again, Star Wars is the thing that remains consistent that I love through all of these. I'm excited to personally do more for thoughts. Sorry, Luke, I just kicked you. I'm excited to do more for thoughts because again, I have a lot of different interests. As do Max and I.
Yeah,
No.
I didn't want to.
I can scrounge up something else to talk about for an hour and throughout the rest of my
Scrounge
life.
Taylor Swift.
Ooh,
She just announced a new album.
Really
That's gonna
like
date
Taylor
this
Swift.
recording.
she just
ignore
announced
that.
the new album within the past 2 months.
Yeah.
That new album that just came out is very good.
That's right. It's gonna be close to it. Oh, jeez. I did want to go back though and say that the more for thought. We're trying something different. Let us know what you think, listener.
Yeah.
But the point isn't to just be about what we're individually very passionate about, because my more for thought is going to be about fast food.
Yes.
I just want to say that beforehand, that
And
they're just not like, this guy's a fat ass.
No,
All
I'm
he
very
cares
excited about
is
that.
fast food.
Yeah, the more for thoughts, I guess, aren't just specific interests as well. It could be whatever the hell we want.
We're edgy now.
It could be whatever we want, such as ranking fast food restaurants, such as talking about Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, my force for thought is actually I intend to talk about like 10 different things. I'm going to have a list and we're just going to go through
Your
them. 'Cause
more for thought will be a
realistically,
like a
I cannot talk for an hour about the operational efficiency of Chick-fil-A.
But
But I think it is worth talking about a little bit.
I think you would be shocked, actually. Honestly,
That'll be the first on-site filmed
it could be.
episode of Force for Thought. We're going to go to Chick-fil-A and record it. It'll be like a documentary.
It could be efficiencies / review.
That would be interesting. A review, I mean, it's all chicken. It's all 10 out of 10. Done.
Anyway, so we shouldn't be spitballing on pod.
That's true. Yeah, cut that. Save it for my more for thought.
All right. Well, yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know if you're a fan of Batman the Animated Series, or if we've inspired you to watch Batman the Animated Series. And also let us know what you think of this segment if you want us to do more of these. If you don't, too bad. We're probably going to do at least 2 more, because Luke and I still want to do our more for thoughts.
I
But
got
let us
some
know.
too. I really want to talk about Harry Potter and the X-Files. Because I really want to make
I
you guys
don't
watch the
dislike
X-Files.
Harry Potter, but I would really like to talk about Harry Potter with you, because I think we have different views on it.
Isn't the
Yeah, 'cause
X-Files
I
like
love it.
10 seasons?
Not all of the X-Files.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Because we have to watch Bad Batch season 2 by Thursday, and I'm like already stressing about my time.
Well, I want to talk about X-Files because that is an example of a show that has 2 movies as well. So you have to watch the movies between. So it kind of relates to Mando. So anyway, we'll talk about that some other time in like 6 months.
In the meantime, follow us on social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, anywhere you can search Force for Thought, you'll find us. Thanks for listening.
Bye, Sammy.
Thanks for watching, too.
Thanks for watching. See you, Sammy.